Livio, thanks again for joining us in more interviews during Italia GRI. It was great to welcome you in our keynote speaker panel. Livio, if you could briefly describe more details about your current role with the European Central Bank, it would be great.
Yeah, so right now I'm a Deputy Director General at ECB, and my area is financial stability and macroprudential policy. It's a big area, as you can imagine, with a lot of different strands of work.
Okay, and when looking at Italy and the complex real estate scenario and the European macro environment, how do you see the country positioned among its European peers?
So as also said in the presentation, the Italian market has been relatively stable compared with others. Partly it's because it's less levered, so leverage is less large than in other countries. And the market is generally, has developed in a more stable way, also in the past than in other jurisdictions. Also, the commercial real estate sector is again less levered and also has been contracting less. So overall, I would say the Italian market is subject to the same trends as other markets, but it just is a more maybe mitigated way, so in a more like a smooth way, so less amplified than other countries.
And how do you access the current scenario and correction in the European commercial real estate? What are the implications for the financial instability in the European context?
Okay, so for the commercial real estate has been hit by both structural and cyclical factors. So the structural factor is the fact that after COVID we work from home much more, and also we shop online much more. Mm-hmm. So obviously the office sector and the retail sector, think of supermarkets, has suffered. Also the commercial real estate is a quite interest-sensitive sector. It tends to be also levered. So high interest rates also have hit the sector. So that's the cyclical part. Mm-hmm. So the structural part is working from home, and the cyclical part is the interest rates. So I think the correction has been relatively easy to explain. Now, the banks do have significant exposures to commercial real estate, but the banking system as a whole is not very exposed. So as I said in the presentation, we have seen rising, say, delinquencies in the commercial real estate. So we have seen basically not, borrowers not paying back their debt in the commercial real estate. But in terms of exposure for the whole banking system, it's not been large. But of course, there are some individual banks. I mean, for example, some called monoliners, that have significant exposure towards the sector. So while generally for the banking sector is not a large exposure, for some individual banks it may be a large exposure. So there we have to be careful.
Okay. And in terms of the fiscal policy, what role do you see for fiscal policy in supporting real estate market and ensuring broader financial stability in the Eurozone?
So I would say the real estate market is always central to the concerns of political sphere. It's always been subject of interventions, like here in this country, the so-called super bonus, but similar schemes exist in other countries. So it's always, of course, it's very close to the voter's heart. So it's always an area where the fiscal intervention is large. Of course, you want to have predictability. You want to have, of course, interventions that are not detrimental for fiscal stability. So you don't want the government deficit to become too large as a result of these interventions. Taxation of housing market is also an issue as well. But I would say predictable and not very costly for public finances is probably what I would say as the guiding principle for fiscal policy. Yeah.
And when looking at future challenges, how do you foresee the global macroeconomic scenario playing out in the coming years and global major trends that you highlighted during the keynote presentation?
Well, I would say so. Growth is continuing, in particular in the U.S. I think the U.S. remains, an engine on growth. A big question mark is China. How is transition? I mean, it experiencing several transitions. One of them is a demographic transition. So how China will evolve and how also the trade tensions between U.S., China, and also the EU, will play out. So the geopolitical part of it, it will be important. And then down the road, we have, new trends like AI, and we are still uncertain what role, artificial intelligence will play. And again, so far, it seems to be very much a US-centered phenomenon. I mean, China is also making a lot of progress. So the question is also, what is the role of Europe in this new world? Can we contribute? Can we become more digital? So that's part of the challenge for Europeans, is how to, really get connected to the most advanced sectors, the most growth-producing sectors, and that's for Europe is a challenge.
Yes, and any highlights in terms of ESG, sustainability trends, not only affecting the real estate market, but also the European broader environment in terms of deals?
So Europe is, I would say, is at the forefront of the transition, so the green transition. So it has a law, the EU climate law. It has a clear plan to achieve net zero emissions. So we will see if this plan is implemented, but there is a plan. So I would say, so Europe is well positioned. And in my opinion, is also in Europe's interest, even beyond climate change. So I mean, Europe has been an importer of fossil fuels. We've also been exposed to shocks. When think of the Russian gas, for example, being cut abruptly after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So both in terms of economic convenience, in terms of security, a shift towards renewables is in Europe's interest in the long term. So it's cost in the short term maybe, but it's in Europe's interest in the long term. So I think Europe has to continue, down this path, and climate change is going to be with us. Climate change is demonstrated. I think sooner or later, most countries will have to do a green transition. So the question, when do you want to do it earlier or later? But it will happen to everybody.
Okay. Thank you again, Livio, for joining us. It will be great to continue these interviews during Italia GRI, and we will continue with our conversations in the real estate markets tomorrow. Thank you again.
Thank you.